flaws or things that you read that you thought were enlightening? Anything you didn't expect, or maybe things you did expect?
I'd like to note to you how this is the best campus they've seen. They've done a lot of externs.
That actually came from Dr. Haterius. She spoke to one of our teachers and I told her that, so. You know who you were, thank you for saying that. Appreciate it. Anything else? Oh, come on. Out of all those things, I mean, I'm excited to share this stuff today.
Well, it looked like, I mean,
Everything.
all that stuff that we've been trying to accomplish, looks like we've accomplished it.
For the most
We're
part.
moving in the right direction for sure.
I mean,
A lot of
Yeah,
writing
moving in
in
the right
classrooms, other than writing. A lot of objective posted, kids could say it, there was some, a lot of writing. Technology, maybe there wasn't that as much,
There was more.
but,
But that's been
But
growing.
technology hasn't really been our problem in practice either,
yeah.
so.
Well, we have those new tablets that Jessica's got on board now that we can start using too.
And technology will probably at some point be a focus, but right now I think we've got some other things we're trying to bout off, so.
As far as
I'm not alarmed about that.
the,
Oh, did I say something?
No.
You never know what I'm gonna say.
She said something that just
Oh.
was funny.
as far as the writing though, like in electives, if they say writing's not
Did they like it?
evident,
Did y'all watch it?
that could be because they weren't in there when we gave the prompt,
Yeah,
right?
didn't
It could be.
Or is there another way that I can
What I
make
told
writing
everyone
evident?
when they were going out is that you may not see the actual act of writing, but you should see at least evidence. Either there's a prompt posted, or there's work on the walls. And so when they're looking for writing, they were looking for anything.
Cause, well, for example, in my class, I put a bell ringer up that has a prompt, and I put it on the screen, so that it's
That's what I
gone
was
when it, yeah. So, but I don't post their book, cause it's all in their sketchbook, so I don't.
And you just have to remember too, and looking at this data, it's not something that you can take personally.
No, I'm not,
It's-
I'm
I know,
just
you're
trying to
just-
figure out how
I
I
know.
could make it more evident when we're not actually doing it
Right.
in an elective class.
But overall, as a group, I mean, the pattern is, yeah, they saw writing. And so that's a good thing, so. Okay, well, I'm gonna go ahead and share, I didn't put these back there because I wanted to go over these with you, but I wanna share the consensus on patterns that we're seeing, with the internal people and with the external people. And then, we'll talk about the strengths and areas for growth, and then we'll talk about the predictions that were made. So, whenever the elective people went and observed in 7th and 8th grade classrooms, the strengths they noticed were that the objectives were posted in the form of we will and I will statements. The teacher in most classrooms was in the power zone. They felt like that teachers were scaffolding learning. They were asking about prior knowledge and things like that in order to activate what kids already knew. They said that they saw cooperative learning, and I want to be cautious on saying the word Kagan, because I know that when we first started cooperative learning, that's what we called it, as Kagan strategies. And Kagan is just a component of cooperative learning, so it's not the end-all be-all, but they did see cooperative learning. They saw critical writing in the classrooms, and they saw that the students were able to verbalize the objective when they asked them what they were learning. Areas for growth from the elective people, they said that they didn't see a lot of, I guess, intentional use of seed questions. And I know that in one of the groups that we met with, maybe two of the groups we met with internally, we talked about we weren't really sure what seed questions were, so that could be part of the problem. They also thought that we didn't use enough higher order thinking skills in our classes. Even though they saw evidence that there were some, the pattern generally was that we were asking questions more at the lower level of Bloom's. So anywhere from probably application on down, analyze on down. And they also said that we need to increase the rigor in our objectives and ensure that the instruction that we're actually, the things we're teaching match what the objective states. And so I think that was a pattern that we noticed probably across the board, is that our objectives are posted, but a lot of times the verb in the objective is lower level, and it may or may not match what's going on in the classroom. The prediction that they made, they said if I were a student at Mineral Wells Junior High and did everything I was expected to do, I would be able to retain information and apply in an academic setting but require assistance to transfer to the real world. So basically, what are they saying there?
They're not ready.
They're not what?
Ready.
Ready for what?
The real world.
Okay, so what is that saying about
You can do it in
instruction.
class, but you can't relate it to real life situations.
So what are we not doing? It goes back to what we've already said. What's not there if we can't transfer it?
We need to make it on
Higher
their,
order thinking.
apply it to their world.
The rigor's not there. And it's not that we're not all working our fingers to the bone in order to get it there. I'm not saying that at all. That that's what we're noticing is that we're not, our students aren't to that level yet. The 7th grade core teachers, when they went in and observed, they observed, I believe, 8th grade and electives. Their strengths they noted were teachers were in the power zone, consistent interaction between the teacher and the student, so they felt like that there was constant communication between the two and that I guess it was equitable. Cooperative learning was evident. The teacher was checking for understanding, which I guess kind of goes back to that scaffolding learning. Almost all classes had the objective posted. The objective, they said, matched the instruction, and most students had asked could verbalize the objective. The areas for growth, they said all classes need higher order thinking skills. Objectives need higher order thinking verbs. Use of pre-planned seed questions need to be more evident. Teachers need to provide opportunities for critical writing with feedback to students. So, although I tried not to lead the conversation when we led these groups, those were some of the things we focused on when we were in with each group. So that's probably why you see a little bit of similarity there. This,
We were the first ones to do it, whereas our poster up and everybody else did it?
no,
Okay.
nobody saw each other's poster. They were on the floor, so I don't know if they peeked, but we didn't get to the prediction on that group because they were the first group and we were behind on time, so no prediction there. And then the 8th grade core group, they said that the strengths were objectives were posted in the form of we will, I will. There was purposeful critical questioning. The teacher was in the power zone. They felt like there were higher order thinking skills questions asked. They felt like on-task student interaction was happening in the form of group work. There was a variety of instructional strategies across the campus. And I can't remember exactly what y'all said on that 8th grade. Y'all said that as far as the variety of instructional strategies, do you remember what you meant by that?
We said that it was good that not everybody was doing like the think, pair, share, or everybody was doing the vote with your feet, but there was a variety of different
That's
learning
what it was.
strategies being used.
Yeah, that's it. Thanks, Sarah. And then most students seem to be engaged. The areas for growth, they said that we need to refine our seed questions. I think that they thought that questions were being asked, but perhaps they weren't truly seed questions. And that the objectives need to have more rigorous verbs. Again, those posters were not up for everybody else to see. So I see a lot of commonality there between all of those posters. The prediction they made, if I were a student at Mineral Wells Junior High and did everything expected, I would be able to communicate effectively at a higher level and work cooperatively with peers in a joint effort. So the external rounds people, when they came in October, they didn't do it the same format that we did, but they said their predictions were students would be able to communicate and work productively with others. They felt like that was down pat, that we've got that part. I can write, you're gonna notice a scribbled out word. The scribbled out word is critically, across classes to reflect on my learning when given the opportunity. And they put 55%. And they said 55% of the tallies that they made in classes, 55% of the teachers they observed had students, gave students the opportunity to write critically. So this was a comment that we spent a lot of time on, and Jeff and Shannon, I don't know if y'all were in here at that time, I think you were, but there was a lot of almost like argument going on between the external rounds people because they wanted so badly to give you guys credit for critical writing. And it was like, yeah, we saw it. It was critical writing. And then there was like another group's like, well, no, they weren't really writing critically. And then it was like, well, what do you define critical writing as? And what do you expect? And so we talked about it's writing with the purpose. It should be content related. Kind of the things we talked about in some of the internal rounds. And so they felt like that kids that were given the opportunity to write critically in classes were writing critically in classes. But they didn't feel like everyone was given an opportunity by the teacher to write critically. So that's where that argument kind of came in, and that's what they finally decided, yeah, everybody can write if they're given the opportunity, but I don't know that we would call it critical writing. I can formulate an opinion and back up my opinion regarding work in my classes, which I thought that was higher level, if you can justify your thoughts. And then I can apply my knowledge in a variety of ways, including PowerPoints, using technology, original writing, publishable math posters, etc. So they did see the posters and work that were on the walls, such as in the math building. The kudos that they gave, they felt like that the environment here was a let's learn environment rather than let's learn how to take a test. They felt like the classroom culture and campus culture was comfortable and it was productively noisy. And they felt like that you guys maximized instructional time, that you went from bell to bell. Now, no, I won't say that. I'll leave that. I did go ahead and write down some other things that they said because they didn't write everything down. So some of the stuff I say may be repeated. If it is, I'm sorry. I wanted you guys to hear everything they said. So some more strength, they said that you're a long way from where you started. And if you'll remember when we started in 2012, what was it they said students would be able to do?
Worksheets and regurgitate.
Compliant. So they said we are a long, long ways from where we started. They said writing was evident in most classrooms. From the people who have been in rounds from the beginning, 2012, the quote was, there has been a lot of growth at Mineral Welch Junior High. Kudos for having the writing posters in every classroom, the donut poster and the expectations for, in fact, there was an argument there because they were giving kudos to us for having those in the classrooms. And then the high school was like, well, I thought y'all were gonna provide those. And so then the high school got their feelings a little bit hurt because they weren't getting the kudos for having their writing posters because they thought curriculum and instruction was doing it. So anyway, we shined on that one. Dr. Hatteria stated on that, it shows that you guys are not only talking the talk, but you're walking the walk on the writing. The I will, we will objectives were posted in all classrooms. A student quote to one of the observers was, I guess they were asking what they were learning. And the student said, in a crazy way, we are learning about how the Confederation influenced the states. And then the group of observers said, that student understands, she's got this. A student quote in a history class, it says, 2 students were looking at a Texas map. The observer went over to determine what the 2 students were doing, and as they were discussing and pointing at the map, they replied, the text says that the people traveled from San Antonio to Nacogdoches. We were trying to determine how far. We noticed there was a scale on the map to help us determine the distance. Then the teacher also made reference to this and also allowed students the opportunity to create their own learning and went along with what the students were interested in order to reinforce what the kids were wanting to learn. Kids were allowed to struggle and teachers were not just giving the kids answers, they were allowing students to think. The environment was very respectful and conducive to learning. I know that we questioned that here lately, but they said that that was the case. The students were engaged. Students showed task commitment. The teacher, even in times that could have been frustrating, remained professional and in the adult role. It was evident to the group because it was not stated in observations that learning in classrooms was happening for the sake of learning and not for the sake of STAR. They only heard one teacher reference STAR and being good test takers, which they felt was a positive thing. They were not focusing on the test, but on the authentic learning. The group stated that they could tell there was intentional planning. Teacher questions seemed to be mostly pre-planned or thought out. One teacher even said, whenever the observers walked in, let me give you the questions we've already addressed that you missed. The observers took this as evidence that the teacher was proud of the questions that they had created, took ownership, and pre-planned. Structures and processes and procedures in classes were clearly in place. There was no time wasted. Immediately there were bell ringers. Teachers did not waste a moment even when they were completing attendance. So I thought, to write all those down, and they were saying these out, and I was writing as fast as I could. So it's just really a proud moment to be able to sit with that group of educators and hear these great things and know that finally it feels like our hard work is paying off. So it's just, you should feel proud of yourself for this. The area of growth, and I have one that I wrote down other than what they've put up here, and it was just that we need more depth on our learning objectives, which I think that we all saw that as well. So, I think I got all the predictions. Students will be able to communicate and work with others in partners or small groups, be productive and stay on task and complete the task, write critically when given the opportunity, or write when given the opportunity. The example they gave on that one too is they said they saw the same student in 2 different classes, and in one class the student wrote because they were given the opportunity to write, but in the other class they didn't write critically because they weren't given the opportunity. So that was where that opportunity part came into. I think I've got the rest of it. Okay, so, with all that said, look at your